Hi, this is hopefully what will be a relatively short video just to walk you through what you need to know for the lab this week. Um, so this is what the screen should look like when you click on the blood vessel lab page in the blood vessel, I can't speak today, the blood vessel module. Um, so here I have added the links to the labs with all the explanation, all this stuff, which you're used to seeing. And I added two new links that just contain the activities. So these files look like this, where the other one makes it clear, right? Where it's just, you need to know this, and you need to know that. So there's less text. I just include them if you want them for whatever reason. And for me, I'm going to use them because it's easier to navigate through them when we're doing the screencasts. So those are there. Use them if you want them. This file is what I will be using for the screencast today. You'll notice it says number 2. I added an image. If you have already printed out the old file I had up there, that's fine, because the image that I added will not be on the lab exam. However, I want to have something to point to when we're talking about blood vessels, so I put the image in there. Then this is your homework, which I think we'll talk about at the end, along with the quiz. But all of this you can do online, and hopefully people have online access. Obviously you do if you're listening to this. So how the heck do I want to do this? Here we go. So we will start with, what do you need to know for blood vessels? You need to know these tunics. Looking at them on the model, they look like this. Tunica externa, tunica media, tunica intima. As I said, this model will not be on the lab exam. So what you need to know is the tissue types that you find in each tunic and the general function of each tunic. And I haven't actually double checked what's in the lab guide, so you might want to write down what I say as we go through this. The tunica externa, you will notice, is just connective tissue, and it is there to be the exterior border of the blood vessel itself. So it is support and structure. Then you have the tunica media. You will notice this has a smooth muscle layer and an elastic layer or external elastic lamina. Both of these have to do with vasodilation and vasoconstriction. So the smooth muscle vasodilates and vasoconstricts in response to different chemical cues like neurotransmitters or CO2 levels. And the elastic layer just allows blood vessels to passively expand and constrict as your blood vessel goes up and, blood pressure goes up and down whenever your heart beats. Then you have the tunica intima. Now this model shows an internal elastic lamina, which we are going to kind of pretend isn't there, even though it is. You want to think of it as just an endothelium, or an inner lining epithelium with connective tissue support. And the major function of the endothelium is simply to provide a smooth surface for blood to flow through or flow over so that you can reduce friction and therefore reduce blood pressure, so that flow is increased and you don't have an increase in blood pressure. So those are your 3 tunics. Just know the tissue types in each tunic and the general function of each tunic. Then we get to this long list of blood vessels. This top one right here, we will do later. For now, we're just going to talk about all of these blood vessels here that you need to know. This is the model that we have for lab. We have another one, but it's really more complicated, and I'm not going to put it on a digital lab exam. So this is the model that you're going to want to know, and we have more pictures of it throughout the PowerPoint. I am not going to point out each blood vessel. I think that would be really boring for a screencast, so I will simply tell you that you need to work your way through this and be able to identify all of these blood vessels. And what I have done is given you one screen where nothing is labeled and you can do with that what you will. And then another screen where I've added the callouts for all of the blood vessels, but I am going to leave it to you to use all of these pictures, wherever they are, there are the pictures, to help identify the blood vessels. Here and there you will notice that something says not shown, not shown. If it says not shown, it's not on the lab exam. So only the things that I have call outs for or arrows for are the things that you want to know. And again, if it says not shown, you don't need to know it. So first thing, be able to identify all of the blood vessels that doesn't say not shown. Second thing, we might ask two different kinds of functional questions. One functional question would be to list which part of the body a given blood vessel supplies. So looking at, say, here we are, the abdominal aorta, right? If we ask you to identify the renal artery, and then the follow-up question is, what part of the body does the renal artery supply? You would say it supplies the kidney. So if it's in a blood vessel with a organ in the name, like splenic, renal, hepatic, then it's individually serving the spleen, the kidney, or the liver. If it's a blood vessel that simply exists in a given part of the body, looking for a good picture here, right, like the brachial artery here in the arm, then you just say, if you identify the brachial artery, that the brachial artery delivers blood to the arm. So you don't need to be super specific if it is an artery or a vein that's in one of your limbs. Whatever part of the body that blood vessel is in, just say it supplies that part of the body. The other kind of functional question we might ask about blood vessels is, and I'm not sure we could even do this on a Canvas exam, but we'll see. We would give you blood vessels in a random order, or we might ask you questions about the order in which blood flows through blood vessels. So for instance, if we asked about the arm, we would ask about blood flow from proximal to distal in the different arteries, because that's the direction of blood flow. So you would need to know that it starts with the subclavian artery, then the axillary, brachial, and then that's going to branch into radial or ulnar. So know that. So for the arm, be able to put these in that order or know this order. And for the leg, same thing. Did I go too far? Oh, I see. It's sorry. It's arteries and veins together. Right? You would want to know that it starts with the common iliac, which then becomes the femoral, then the popliteal. So something like that. Know the flow of blood from proximal to distal for arteries, and then distal to proximal for the veins, right? Because for veins, the blood is going to flow in that direction. So look over that, know that for the different arteries and veins. Then what's next? Sorry, this is all very new. So arteries, veins, again, look over the PowerPoints. If it says not shown, then you don't need to know it. Moving on to, I did not do circle of Willis yet, so let me show you where the circle of Willis is. There we go. The circle of Willis is in your skull. So here's the skull. If you take the skull cap off over here and look, now you're looking directly down into the skull. Here's the frontal bone, ethmoid, olfactory lobes. This little circle of blood vessels right here is the circle of Willis. You do not need to know any of the individual names of those blood vessels. Simply know that if we show you the inside of the skull, you will say that the circle of Willis resides there. Then we have this special circulation here. We do have a model for the Sorry, too many files open. We do have a model for the fetal circulation. I will tell you right now that the picture of the fetal circulation will not be on the lab exam. We will ask you to know the function of all of these different blood vessels and know what becomes of them after birth or in the perinatal period. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing because you don't have time to take notes. But looking at your lab guide, here's the picture you can study, but just read this over and know the function of the foramen ovale and that it becomes the fossa ovalis, the function of the ductus arteriosus and that it becomes the ligamentum arteriosum, and the ductus venosum and ligamentum venosum. Whoops, sorry, this is not my best screencast. Then I should have started here. Umbilical veins, umbilical arteries, know what they carry and the direction of their flow. All right, so if you are, I want a bigger picture, right? These two purple things here are your umbilical arteries. They're arteries because they're carrying blood away from the heart. They carry semi-oxygenated blood. And why that is, we don't have time to go into, but it's not fully oxygenated. So blood is going to flow from the abdominal aorta into the umbilical arteries. They carry the blood to the placenta. This is where the blood gets oxygenated. So then it comes back via umbilical veins. So we call it a vein because it's carrying the blood to the heart, but just like with the pulmonary circulation, because this blood is coming from the oxygen source, the placenta, this vein is color-coded red. So you want to know umbilical arteries carry deoxygenated blood away from the fetal heart, and umbilical veins, or the umbilical vein, carries oxygenated blood toward the fetal heart. So those should be all of the blood vessels you need to be able to identify or know some sort of function about. Then there's your histology for that week, which is in your PowerPoint slides. This is 4x objective low magnification view of an artery, a vein, a whole bunch of adipose and other connective tissues. And I know you don't care, but these interesting structures here and here, those two things and that, those are all nerves. So if you see something on the lab exam that looks like this at the end of the pointer, this is an artery. You will notice that the wall is relatively thick. That's a lot of smooth muscle and some elastic tissue. And that's all red blood cells in the middle of it. Compare this to the vein here. Here the wall is much thinner, and you'll also notice if you were to stretch this vein out so that it made a complete circle, the lumen of this would be much bigger than the lumen of that. So arteries tend to have narrower openings and thicker walls, and veins tend to be larger, or at least have the ability to become wider than the arteries, and they have thinner walls. So that is what you need to know for the blood vessels. Then there's let me get to it, cardiovascular physiology. This I will tell you there is not a lot of on the lab exam. Because we can't have you listen to heart sounds or take somebody's pulse or blood pressure on the lab exam. What you need to know for the lab exam is these arteries. I don't know what kind of question this will be yet, probably like a multiple choice question, or maybe a fill in the blank, list an artery or 2 or 3 arteries that are good for checking somebody's pulse. So just commit those to memory. You want to know what the apical pulse is and the radial pulse. I will leave it to you to read up on that. And then regarding blood pressure, let me go to your worksheet here. You want to know what systole means, which we already discussed during lecture. Systole means a heart chamber contraction. Therefore, diastole would be relaxation, and then systolic pressure and diastolic pressure referred to the blood pressure during systole and the blood pressure during diastole. And that is all you need to know from the cardiovascular physiology lab for the lab exam. Let me see that. Right. So that brings us through pretty much everything you need to know. I know it was quick, but I feel like you'll be better served if you just read everything rather than being bored to death watching a screencast. So then let me just go back to this. These screencasts will get better as I get more used to doing this, but for now they're kind of haphazard. So we just went through those PowerPoints, which outlines what you need to know. Your worksheet looks like this. Whoops. So hopefully you have PowerPoint on your, I can't speak today, on your computer at home. So you can just come in here and, fill this out. I'll do one for you. Carotid. A is the common carotid. So fill these out using the pictures that you have and the other PowerPoints. Because if you look at the other PowerPoints, right, it'll tell you what your possible arteries and veins are for that picture, so it makes it a little bit easier. But fill this out to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I think in the future, maybe I'll just put the names over here, and then all you would have to do is take the name and drag it over, or maybe make it a little easier. We'll see. That might be more work for me. But so here, right, if you click on that, it takes you to the assignment page. That's where the file is. And then on this page, you can upload the file and submit it. I think, why won't it go back? It's so weird. If I'm remembering correctly, there's Blood Vessel Lab. I also, oh, it's not up there. Um, if you're in the 7-8 section, which this uh, screen is a shot of, I'm also going to put up a PDF file if you don't have PowerPoint on your home computer. You can use the PDF file to see what the questions are and then just type the answers into the text box on the assignment page. Um, So I will add, if you're in the 7-8 section, another file here that's a PDF, which you should be able to at least view so that you can do the homework. And then if you click on this, this should take you to mastering. So the quizzes I'm going to do in mastering, excuse me, mastering, because it's a lot easier for me to grade them that way, and um, I think it'll just work better for all concerned because they're already sort of put together in mastering. Um, so then you just do the quiz and it should go right into the grade book. This is now an assignment in your grade book. And because the quiz is in mastering, you do want to spend some time learning what these blood vessels look like in mastering too, so that you do well on the quiz. I think that's it. I'm sure there will be questions. The questions you have, you can either email me, use the inbox function on Canvas, or you can address them during office hours, which we're going to have in Teams. And I will send out, I think I need to send everybody an email and remind them to join the team because that's the way we can do live office hours and video or audio chat. All right, that's it. Thanks for sticking to it this long.